I built the machine that took your money. Not a machine like it. The actual machine. The sound it makes when you almost win. The lights that flash when you do. The math underneath all of it that we spent years, sometimes decades, perfecting. I sat in the meetings where we decided exactly how to do it. I signed the paperwork. And for 37 years, I never said a word to the people sitting in front of those machines. I'm saying it now. I want to start with something most people don't know about the gambling industry. The people who build slot machines are not gamblers. They're engineers, mathematicians, psychologists, acoustic designers, behavioral scientists. The team that built the machine you sat in front of last weekend had more advanced degrees between them than most hospital departments. And every single one of those degrees was pointed at the same target. You. I graduated with an engineering degree in the late 1970s. Got a job at a slot machine manufacturer almost by accident. A friend of a friend, the usual story. I figured I'd stay a year or two, learn the industry, see what happened. I was 21 years old, and I thought slot machines were simple. Pull a lever, spin some reels, cherries or no cherries. I thought I was going to be bored. I was not bored. What I walked into was one of the most sophisticated applied psychology operations in the history of commercial entertainment. And I'm not being dramatic. I mean that literally. The level of deliberate, documented, scientifically validated psychological engineering that goes into a modern slot machine would genuinely shock most people. Not because it's hidden, but because nobody ever explains it out loud, in plain language, to the people it's designed to affect. So that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to walk you through exactly how those machines work. Not the marketing version, not the regulatory version, the version that lived in our design meetings, in our internal testing sessions, in the conversations we had after the focus groups went home and we sat around debriefing what we'd learned about human behavior that day. By the time we're done, you're going to see every casino floor you ever walk into completely differently. And I think that's the right thing. When I joined the industry, slot machines were mechanical. Physical reels, real springs and gears. The randomness was genuine in the sense that it came from physical movement, friction, weight. There was no algorithm because there was no computer. What you saw was what you got, more or less. The house had an edge built into the physical design, but the machine itself was essentially honest about what it was doing. That changed in the early 1980s when computerized random number generators entered the picture. And here is where everything gets interesting, because that transition from mechanical reels to virtual reels driven by RNGs was the single most important moment in the history of the slot machine industry. Not because it made the machines more random, because it made them infinitely programmable. Suddenly, you didn't have to change a physical gear to change a payout. You changed a number in a table. You didn't have to retool a mechanism to adjust how often a certain symbol appeared. You edited code. The machine became software. And software can be optimized in ways that metal and springs never could be. I watched that transition happen in real time, and I watched what it did to the industry. Within a decade, the machines were incomparably more sophisticated, more engaging, more precisely tuned to produce specific psychological outcomes. More profitable, not by accident, by design. Here's the first thing I want you to understand. The goal of a slot machine is not to give you a chance to win. I know that sounds obvious when I say it that way. Of course, the casino wants to make money. Everybody knows that. But I'm saying something more specific. The goal of a slot machine is to keep you playing. Winning is part of that goal, but only insofar as it serves that purpose. The machine is not in the business of giving you money. It is in the business of managing your behavior, keeping you in the seat, keeping the spins coming. That is the engineering objective. That is what we measured. That is what we celebrated in the design room when we got it right. Every feature on a modern slot machine exists to serve that objective. Every sound, every light, every near miss, every bonus round, every small payout that doesn't actually return your bet but makes you feel like something happened. All of it is in service of the same engineering goal. And knowing that changes how you should think about every single moment you spend in front of one of those machines. The concept I want you to understand first is volatility, not as an abstract term, as a practical description of how a machine manages your money over time. Volatility is simply how a machine distributes its payouts. A low volatility machine pays out smaller amounts more frequently. Your bankroll goes up and down, but not dramatically. You stay in the game a long time. A high volatility machine pays out larger amounts far less frequently. Long stretches of nothing, then occasionally something significant. That's the entire concept. But here's what most players miss about it. When you sit down at a high volatility machine with $150 in a plan to play for 2 hours, that machine can and regularly does go 2, 3, 400 spins without a meaningful return. During all those spins, you're losing money. Not fast, not catastrophically, but steadily. And the machine is giving you just enough back in small returns to keep you believing that the big one is still coming. We had a name for those small returns in internal discussions. We call them keeps, not wins. Keeps, because that's their function. They're not designed to give you value. They're designed to give you enough hope to stay for one more spin. The distinction between those two things is enormous, and most players never make it. A keep might return 30 credits on a 200 credit bet. It shows up on screen as a win. The lights flash. The sound plays. Your brain registers a positive event. But you just lost 170 credits on that spin. The machine made the loss feel like something else entirely. We knew exactly what we were doing. Every single one of us in that design room knew. And we did it anyway because it worked, and the industry rewarded the things that worked. Now, the RTP number, return to player. You've probably seen it cited somewhere. Maybe 94%, maybe 96%, maybe 88% on a bad machine. And there's a very specific thing that most players believe about that number that is completely wrong. They believe it means something about their session. It does not. RTP is a mathematical average calculated over millions and millions of spins. It is a long-run statistical outcome, like saying a coin flipped 1,000,000 times will land heads approximately 50% of the time. That's true over 1,000,000 flips. It tells you nothing about the next 10. RTP tells you nothing about the 2 hours you're sitting in front of that machine tonight. Nothing. It is a regulator-friendly number that describes a long-run behavior with almost no bearing on any individual session. We used to joke in the design room, and it was the kind of joke that was also completely true, that RTP was the number that made regulators comfortable and told players almost nothing useful. If you have a choice and you can find the information, go higher. A 96% machine is mathematically more generous over its lifetime than an 88. But understand what you're reading. You are reading a long-run average. You are not reading a promise about tonight. Never confuse those two things. Now here's the one I'm most qualified to talk about, because I worked on it directly. The sounds and the lights are not decoration. I want to say that again because I don't think people really hear it the first time. The sounds and the lights are not decoration. They are engineering. They are as deliberately designed as the mathematical engine underneath them. And in some ways, they are more important because the math works on your wallet, but the sounds and lights work on your nervous system. In the 1990s, when I was working on audio design, we brought in consultants, acoustic psychologists, people who had spent their careers studying how sound affects human emotion, arousal, and decision-making. And we sat with them for months, mapping out exactly what frequencies triggered excitement, what tempos increased heart rate, what tonal patterns created anticipation versus reward, what the neurological difference was between a sound that made you want to spin again versus one that made you feel satisfied and ready to stop. We wanted the first kind. Obviously, the sounds you hear when a slot machine pays out are not just celebratory. They are calibrated. The pitch rises on wins. The rhythm accelerates during near misses. The volume swells at specific moments in ways designed to trigger small dopamine releases. We knew the neuroscience. We applied it every single day. It was a core design priority with its own budget and its own specialists. The lights work identically. Flash patterns during win sequences were tested obsessively. Certain patterns create stronger excitement responses than others. Certain color temperatures hit differently in different emotional contexts. We knew which combinations worked, and we built them into every machine that needed to perform. I'm telling you this so that the next time you feel a rush of excitement on a spin, you understand that feeling didn't happen by accident. It was engineered specifically to happen to you in that moment to produce one specific behavioral outcome. One more spin, knowing that creates distance. And distance is the most valuable thing you can bring into a casino. Everything I've told you so far, the volatility, the keeps, the RTP, the audio engineering, none of it is the part of my career I find hardest to look at. That would be something we put in every single machine for decades. Something so effective and so deliberately designed that when I explain what it actually is, most people feel a very specific kind of anger. And they should. Here's what a near miss actually is. Near misses are not accidents. I need you to sit with that sentence for a moment, because it sounds like I'm saying something ordinary, and I am not. When you spin the reels, and 2 jackpot symbols land perfectly on the pay line, and the third one stops 1 position above it, that outcome was in the probability table. We put it there. We decided how often it would happen. We debated, in actual design meetings with actual engineers and actual psychologists, exactly how frequently near misses should appear, how close the losing symbol should stop to the pay line, whether it was more motivating if the near miss symbol stopped above the line versus below it. Because it turns out that matters. Research showed that a near miss stopping above the pay line was perceived as more motivating than one stopping below. The player felt closer, more likely to try again. We used that knowledge. Of course we did. The reason near misses exist is because a near miss feels like almost winning. Your brain responds to a near miss almost identically to how it responds to an actual win. The same neural regions activate. The same chemicals move. But a near miss pays you nothing. It costs you a full spin, and it gives you the emotional experience of near success, which makes you want to spin again, which was exactly the intended outcome. I signed off on near miss frequency tables for years. I knew what I was doing. Everyone in that room knew. We convinced ourselves that players understood the game, that their choices absolved us of responsibility, that we were just building entertainment. I believed that for a long time. It got harder to believe the longer I was in it. Now I want to tell you about what the industry privately considered one of its greatest achievements. A category of machine so cleverly engineered that it took a large portion of the player base and doubled their average spin per session while making them feel like they were being responsible. We were very proud of it at the time. I think about it differently now. Here's what a penny machine actually is. The minimum bet on a penny machine is not a penny. It has not been a penny for a very long time. When you sit down at a penny machine in a modern casino, you're typically betting somewhere between 50 cents and $3 per spin minimum, once you factor in the lines and the multipliers. But your brain doesn't register it that way. Your brain hears penny machine and it relaxes. It thinks this is the cheap option. This is me being responsible. While your brain is having that thought, the machine is taking $2 a spin at a lower RTP than the dollar machine 3 rows over. We knew this. We designed around it deliberately. The penny machine category was engineered to lower the perceived barrier to entry while actually increasing the spin per session for a very large portion of the player base. People who would never sit down at a $5 machine would happily sit down at a penny machine and spend more money per hour. That was not a coincidence. That was the engineering. There's also a feature on almost every modern machine I want to address directly because it generated more revenue per square foot than almost anything else we ever put on a cabinet. The max bet button. One button. Bets the maximum on every line simultaneously. And there is enormous implicit pressure in the design of the machine to use it. The argument is that you need to bet max to qualify for the jackpot. On progressive jackpots, that's often true. On other machines, the justification is that bonus features pay better at higher bets. Here is what that button actually is from an engineering perspective. It is a speed accelerator. A player betting max moves through their bankroll significantly faster than a player making considered bets. And speed is always the enemy of the player. The longer your money lasts, the more spins you get, the more chances you have for something positive to occur. The max bet button was designed to feel like the bold, experienced player's choice. In most situations, for most players, it is not. Unless you are specifically chasing a progressive jackpot, that requires max bet, and you have a bankroll that can sustain that level for a real session, ignore it. Make your own bet. A considered bet that fits what you actually brought with you. Now let me tell you about bonus rounds. Because this is where players feel most rewarded and where they're most efficiently managed without knowing it. Bonus rounds feel like the best part of playing. They're exciting. They feel free. You triggered something. You unlocked something. You're getting extended play without directly spending your own money in that moment. That feeling is real. But here's what a bonus round actually is from the inside. A bonus round is a separate probability table with its own math. When you trigger it, the game switches from the base game engine to the bonus engine. And that bonus math was designed, like everything else, to deliver a specific average return. Sometimes better than the base game, sometimes not. The bonus round is not a guaranteed windfall. It is a different set of odds with a different aesthetic wrapper. What we designed bonus rounds to do, first and foremost, was produce a memorable emotional experience. The animations, the sounds, the sense of participation and agency. Those elements were engineered to make players remember the machine fondly regardless of what the math actually returned. We brought players into testing sessions and had them play two versions of the same bonus round, identical math, different visual and audio experience. The visually exciting version consistently rated as more generous even when it paid exactly the same amount. The experience was doing work the math alone couldn't do. That is not accidental design. That is applied psychology executed by engineers who understood precisely what they were building. Now, I want to tell you something that has less to do with how these machines work and more to do with what I watched them do to real people over nearly 4 decades. I wasn't just an engineer looking at numbers. I was a person watching other people. And there is a specific thing I saw over and over that I sat in meetings about, that we discussed professionally and calmly, that I'm only now allowing myself to fully reckon with. Here's what I actually watched. There's a type of player that anyone who has spent real time in a casino will recognize immediately. Not the tourist, not the occasional visitor having a fun night. The other kind, the one sitting at the machine with no expression on their face. Not excited, not engaged, completely still, feeding the machine mechanically, spin after spin, the world entirely gone like something has been switched off behind the eyes. I watched that player from the inside of the industry for nearly 4 decades. And I will tell you something I'm not proud of. I sat in design meetings where we talked about that state. Not in those terms. We called it immersion, engagement, flow. We talked very seriously and very professionally about how to produce it more reliably, how to extend it once it started, how to make the machine more effective at sustaining it. We measured it. We refined toward it. We celebrated the design choices that deepened it. What we were talking about was a dissociative state, a person who had ceased to be a rational agent making choices and had become a mechanism feeding another mechanism. And we worked to engineer that, deliberately, with expertise and intention and advanced degrees. I'm not proud of that. It is the part of my career that sits heaviest. We told ourselves the players' choices absolved us, that they came willingly, knew the risks, made their decisions. That story gets harder to sustain the older you get and the more distance you have from the thing you were building. I'm not saying this to make you afraid of casinos. I'm saying it because you deserve to know what you're walking into. Not the glossy version, the engineering version. So here's what I would actually do if I were walking onto a casino floor today as a player. I would decide my number before I enter the building. Not a hopeful number, a real one. The amount I am genuinely comfortable losing tonight. Not what I plan to spend if things go well. What I'm willing for the night to actually cost me. And I would treat that number as already spent the moment I walk through the door. Mentally, it's gone. What I'm doing now is buying entertainment. Same as a dinner out or a concert. When the money is gone, the evening is over. No renegotiation. No exceptions. And I need you to understand why I'm so specific about that rule. Because I know what's on the other side of that decision. I built the systems that erode it. The near misses, the keeps, the bonus rounds, the sound design, all of it working simultaneously to make the rational part of your brain a little quieter and the hopeful part a little louder. The only defense that consistently holds up against all of it is a number decided before any of that engineering gets a chance to run on you. I would look at the pay table before I played anything. 60 seconds. Most people never do it. The pay table tells you everything about how a machine is structured. The gap between the top prize and the smaller symbol combinations tells you the volatility. Wide gap means high volatility, long stretches of nothing hunting for the big hit. Smaller gap means lower volatility, more frequent smaller returns, a longer breathing session for the same money. 60 seconds, and you know what you're sitting down at. I would choose a denomination that gives my bankroll room. If I have $100, I am not sitting at a machine with a $2 minimum spin. That is not a session. That is 50 spins followed by a door closing in your face. I want enough spins for variance to have room to move, for something to actually happen before I'm out. I would pay attention to where the machine sits in the room. High traffic visible areas near main walkways tend to run a little more generously. Not dramatically, not as a guarantee, but the pattern was real when I was working, and I would be surprised if it's entirely gone. The casino uses visible winning as advertising. They put the machines most likely to produce it where the most people will see it. Corners and quiet sections don't need to perform that function, and often don't. And I would pay close attention to how I feel while I'm playing. Not just winning or losing, how I actually feel. Am I having fun? Am I engaged and present and enjoying the experience? Or am I somewhere else? Chasing, grinding, hunting for the thing that will make the night make sense. Because the moment it stops being fun is the moment the machine has become something other than entertainment. And that is exactly when you need to stand up, not in 10 more spins. Right then, I spent 37 years building these machines. I built them well. They work exactly as we designed them to work. And I'm sitting here now, retired, with nothing left to protect, telling you exactly how they work because I think that's what I should have done a long time ago. Walk in with your eyes open. Look at the pay table. Choose a denomination your bankroll can actually sustain. Find a spot where the casino wants you to be seen winning. Set your number and hold it like it's the most important thing you brought with you tonight, because it is. And if you feel that shift, that quiet, specific shift from enjoying yourself to something that feels more like need, stand up. Walk away from the machine. Go get some air. Go find someone to talk to. The machine will be there when you come back. It's not going anywhere. It will be running the exact same program, waiting for the next person who sits down. But you need to still be yourself when you come back to it. That's everything I learned in 37 years. The machine is very, very good at making you forget who you are. Don't let it.